Hey guys, Vaping Villain here from Instagram, and I have a build tutorial for you today. We're going to build a 28 by 38 Fused Clapton, and we're going to wrap it around a piece of 20 gauge, which is going to create a micro Fused Clapton. The original concept was by a guy on Instagram by the name of Guach. If you guys haven't checked out his builds, be sure to do so. He has some pretty crazy hybrids on there. So right now we're going to go through some of the tools that you're going to need to do this, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, for the build today, we're going to use some 28 gauge Canthal. We're going to Clapton that with some of this 38 gauge Canthal from Tripwire. You're going to need a piece of 20 gauge, and that will be straightened later on. All of your basic hand tools, some ceramics, some toothless pliers, flush cuts, a pair of scissors, extra Allen wrench if you need one, a mod to fire your build on, some wick, and also an RDA. I'll be using the Twisted Messes Squared today, and it will be juiced with some Dude Juice, some Jade. Alright guys, first step of the build here, we're going to take some of this 28 gauge off the spool here and straighten it. And to straighten it, I just use a pair of toothless pliers, pull off as much as you need, about an arm's length, and just give it a pull, and that'll straighten it. So once you have the amount of wire that you're going to need, go ahead and run it through your swivels if you decide to Clapton with that method. If you do it freehand, then you can go ahead and do that. I'll take both my ends here, and I like to bend a little L so it catches the chuck of my drill, because my drill does not close all the way. That way it holds it nice and tight while I Clapton. Make sure everything's set. You want to make sure that this right here stays as level as possible. If this point is too high or too low, it's going to cause pressure right here, and it will cause these wires to break. I'm going to be Claptoning in a clockwise motion. You can Clapton in whatever direction you choose. I just prefer to go clockwise. It's easiest for me. Take the 38 gauge, wrap it around the post sticking off the chuck of the drill here, cut off the extra, and then begin your Clapton. This is a pretty basic build. By now, I'm assuming you guys already know how to do the Fused Clapton, so we're just going to kind of breeze over it real quick here. The part that I really want to show you is how I wrap it. So with this, it's just like any Clapton. You want to keep it about 90 degrees to the wire, maybe even a little back. You don't want to lead it too much, otherwise it's going to cause a lot of spacing, which isn't going to cause issues performance-wise. It's just going to be a little less aesthetically pleasing. Once you get going, you can pick up the speed quite a bit. We'll want to do this whole section here since we're doing a dual coil. So we'll just cut the ends here, get this off of the drill, and then I'm going to try and get a nice macro shot for you guys so you can see what this looks like up close. So here you can see the 38 gauge Clapton around the piece of 28. It's very fine. It's kind of hard to pick up on the camera here, but you can see it there. Alright, so now we have our Fused Clapton done. We'll set that to the side for a second. Now we're going to take this piece of 20 gauge, we're going to straighten it, and then we're going to hook it into the swivels. To straighten it with this, because it is a lot thicker of a gauge than the 28, we're not going to be able to pull it, or at least I'm not going to pull it. So I will use the drill. Give it a spin for a second, and then it'll be good. Put it in the swivels here. Nice little bend on it. And that's good. Alright guys, we got our Fused Clapton here done. So now is what we're going to do. We're going to take these nylon tip pliers and we're just going to work our way from one end of the wire to the other, straightening it out as best as possible. Taking out any twists that might be in there from running the swivels. It is important to run a ball bearing swivel over a barrel swivel. The ball bearing swivels glide a lot easier, causing a lot less twist in your wire. So those will help out a lot, especially if you're working with high gauge Claptons, such as 28 and maybe 30 gauge Claptons. So we got just about all of the wire here done. It turned out pretty well. Alright, so now on the drill here, I've already straightened out a piece of 20 gauge, and I got it hooked up to the swivels here and into the chuck of the drill. So now to make this macro coil and wrap it around this piece of 20 gauge, I'm going to bend just a little L in one end of this Fused Clapton, and I'm going to stick that in one of the teeth on the drill. And then slowly, as we begin to pull the trigger on the drill, it's going to start to wrap around the piece of 20 gauge. We want to make sure that the Clapton itself stays flat and doesn't start to roll over on its side. If it does, work slowly with your nylon pliers, straightening it back out, and continue to roll it. You want to put on a few extra wraps than what you're actually going to use. So I plan on having a 15 wrap coil, so I'll probably put on 16, 17 wraps, and then we'll pull those back off. Take it, we'll bend it over just a little bit, cut that lead off, and then we'll do that one more time to get our second coil. It's alright if you put extra wraps on, we can always take them off. Better to have too many than not enough. Alright. Here's what I'll do, I'll just clip off the little L that you bent there for the drill, and then go ahead and just slide your coil right off. Here's what I will do, I'll cut a couple pieces of 20, about an inch or so long, and these I'm going to slide inside of the coil and keep them inside it while I'm working with it and installing it. Makes it a lot easier. Just get those reinstalled. So now I'll make sure I have 15 wraps on these and pull the leads off and get them trimmed up, and then we'll go ahead and install it. how I'm pulling these off here, I have the coil over top of my 20 gauge, and I just start with a little lead, grab with my pliers here, and I'll just start to pull and let it just roll off my fingers and take wraps off every time it goes around. So you can see here I obviously wrapped a lot more than I needed to, but it was easier. Once you're wrapping and once it's laying flat, it doesn't hurt anything to keep going further and then just pull those back off. Like I said, I'd rather have too many wraps than to be done and out of wire and not have enough. So I'm going to finish this up here, finish trimming these up, get them pulled down to my 15 wraps, and then we'll come back and we'll throw it in the RDA. Alright guys, so I have my dual coils here pulled down to 15 wraps a piece. Now we're going to install them in the Twisted Messes squared here, sitting on my Snow Wolf. If you guys haven't checked out the Twisted Messes squared, be sure to. It's by far my favorite atomizer, second only to the original Twisted Messes. I find the airflow and the deck style amazing. I love it. So when we're installing these, I like to trim my leads a little bit, but not too long. Let them hang out the other side for my first coil. I'm just going to set them in and leave my coil about 1/8 of an inch off of the deck, because we're going to have to adjust this coil. We're not going to leave it sit just like you would a normal coil. So once I get it set here, we'll snug down the first set. And now for the second coil, now that these are tight, I'll leave them tight. Once I get my second coil ready to insert after I've clipped my leads, I will loosen them up just enough to slide the leads in so I'm not messing up my coil. I like to leave the piece of 20 gauge here just in case it does start to fall or move. I can just grab hold of it instead of having to grab the whole coil. So I'm going to go ahead and get this other one installed, and then we'll come back to fire it up. Alright guys, we got them installed here in the Twisted Messes, and I actually took another step and I went and washed the coils. Take a little bit of dish soap and just give the coils a little scrub. It helps get the oils from your finger and your skin off of the coils, and if you're going for color, it also helps a lot to get that and remove that oil from the coil. So we're going to start pulsing here at about 50 watts, and we're going to work our way all the way up to anywhere between 90 and 100 watts once it starts to glow across the whole coil. So we'll see how it goes. I like to work slow. It's better to go slow than to just put it at 100 watts and melt your coil. The 50 watts might take a little bit at first, but you're going to get a better result in the end. And if your coil starts to sag, save those pieces of 20 gauge, and you can reinsert them and give it a little tweak if needed. Beware, when you stick these into the coil, they will become very hot. we go. Now that we've got them glowing from the inside out just how I want them, we'll go ahead and we'll turn it up to about 65 and see how they work. Good, nice and even heat, no hot spots, no shorting. Alright, we'll let this cool down and then we'll go ahead and wick it. Alright guys, now we're ready to wick. There's kind of a unique way to wick this so it actually works, seeing as the inner diameter of this coil is only the diameter of a piece of 20 gauge. It would be almost impossible to get some cotton through it and have it maintain and stay wicked. Otherwise you're going to get dry hits. So is what we're going to do, we're going to cut off a couple chunks of this cotton bacon here, and we're just going to tuck it underneath the coil, and then once it's tucked underneath the coil enough, we're going to carefully press each coil down into the bed of cotton, and then we're going to take a little bit and put it behind it, in between the posts and the coil. Take a little piece, and this kind of takes some time. I use a piece of 20 gauge, that same piece, kind of set it over the coil, and just slowly start tucking it underneath of the coil, and just get a nice little bed of cotton under there. And then once you get enough, I like to reinsert the piece of 20 gauge into the coil. It adds stability to it so it's not flexing while you're pushing it down. And then just take your fingers, set it on the coil, and just press down a little bit. Not too much, but you want it to set. You want it to come in contact with that cotton. If it's not touching the cotton, then it's just going to be red hot and it's going to burn all the time. So press it down into that bed of cotton, and then just slide your piece of 20 gauge back out. Make sure it's all nice in there, and then we'll do the same to the other side. Now we're ready to push the coil down. When you push this one down, make sure they line up evenly with your other coil as far as depth down. It's not necessarily a performance change, it's just, to me, they just look better, so I like to make them even as possible. Make sure all the cotton's nice. Now take a smaller piece. This one, just kind of set up on top in between the posts and your coil, and just work it down. Once you juice on this, you can readjust the cotton and move it around a little bit. This piece that we're adding on right now helps it stay wicked, help it not dry out as fast, so you don't have to drip as often. Alright guys, we got this all wicked up and juiced here and ready to go. I'm going to give you a little pulse fire action here so you guys can see what it's like. This is about 90 watts. You can actually see, if you look closely, the vape coming out of each little coil there. It's kind of reminiscent of a dragon coil in a way, but it actually produces a very dense, flavorful vape without all the heat. It's a very cool vape. If you would like more heat, you could remove more cotton between the center post and the coil. I myself, with this particular build, I don't enjoy the heat so much. With your regular conventional build with the cotton through the coil, I enjoy a much warmer vape. So we'll throw the cap on here and check it out. Alright, here we go. Very flavorful. Definitely getting all the flavor out of the juice, but with zero heat. Like I said, if you like more heat, you can adjust it, but to me it's just a perfect build. Well guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you'd like to see any other videos like this, or if you have any ideas that you'd like me to explore and any RDAs you want me to look at or builds you'd like me to do, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks.